Hello and welcome to a short video on drawing techniques without a drawing board. So this is going to focus mostly on just the techniques for getting accurate drawings when you don't have a professional wired drawing board to work at. And I'll be using a piece of board which is just some oak veneered MDF which happens to have a perfect 90-degree corner just here. I know that because I've cut it to be 90. And that will be quite important later on. So there will be a few tools and items that you'll need for this. The first one, I think rather obviously, being some paper. These techniques will be extremely useful for drawing things like 1:1 scale rods. The next thing that you will need will either be a propelling pencil at 0.6mm, a nice sharp HB pencil. You will definitely need a good quality combination square, and some other items I'll be using in my demonstration will be various different types of compasses which are good for drawing, items for putting angles into my drawing, plastic rulers for measuring, or measuring tapes for measuring. And also I have a pencil sharpener for sharpening the pencils that I'll be using. The last thing I'll be using is some tape. I recommend masking tape for this, but a small bit of sellotape, which is what I'll be using now, is quite efficient. By the way, the paper needs to be lined exactly with the corner of the drawing board, or if we're working at a table in the classroom, it must be exactly in line with the edge of the table, as that becomes our reference for working. So there shouldn't be any table visible between the edge of the paper, nor should there be any paper overhanging the edge of the table. It should be exactly in line. When we tape it down, we want to tape just a very small bit of the corner down, maybe 3 to 4mm max. And the reason we tape the paper down is it makes it much easier to work on. The paper doesn't slip and move as you're working. I like to tape left then right where possible. This helps keep the paper nice and tight. I don't pull the paper too hard, because I don't want to create a crease in it. And I will tape down all 4 corners. As carefully as possible. When I'm drawing, I'll always place a border around the outside of the page, and I'll always put a text box on the bottom right hand side in order to record important information, like who's drawn the drawing, what date it was drawn on, what scale the drawing's at, what the title of the project is, if it's been signed off by anybody, what revision of drawing it is. And this is where I'll start with the first demonstration. So when you're using a ruler or a tape measure, the key points to note are that you must measure from a whole number. 100mm is a common whole number to work from, and place that number on the point you wish to measure from, and then place a point at the required distance, 90 degrees from the ruler away. So with the ruler parallel to the edge of the page, I've placed 100mm on the edge of the paper, checked it as accurately as I can, and now we'll place a dash, a tiny little dash, in line with 9 centimeters, 90mm. And you can see that that dash is quite short, but is running this way. It's not much good if you place a dash in line with the ruler this way, because it won't give you a very accurate mark to work to. Okay. If your only ruler in class is the combination square that you're working with, you will have to place the combination square edge down, like so, onto the page, onto a whole number. You may be able to see at this end that I'm on 210, and with that edge down I can run down the 200mm and accurately place a mark in line with it that way, and it's a little dash just like that again. Again, if I'm using the tape measure, a very similar procedure. I will place the 100mm mark on the edge of the page and place a small dash at 110mm just here in line with that. And if for any reason I'm not happy with that dash mark, I'll move to another place and put another one in. What is really important is that this tape measure is parallel with that edge. This combination square, when I measured here, was nice and parallel with this edge, so that I'm not affecting my measurement. And as you can see, the same measurement from here to here will come up and be much further into the page this way once it's squared. So that is quite important. The last and final mark for the border is just over here, and in this case I've placed the 0 mark on the edge of the page and traced the 10mm mark just down there. So next up, we will want to use the combination square in this fashion. Placing the stock against the edge of the board, carefully adjust until it meets the pencil line. Place your pencil on the line and make a larger mark than the original dash to see if it's in line. Hopefully it should be perfectly in line, and if it's not, you'll need to readjust it. Next, in order to draw the border, I will make a small mark where I think 10mm is just here. And then I will draw a line to where I think 10mm might be on the other edge just here. However, when I do the side, I will square from this edge. So the stock of the tool will be just against that edge there, and I will be squaring up this way. So I will put my pencil on the line and slide the square up to it. And in this case, I'll have 10mm on the edge of the page, or sorry, 0mm on the edge of the page, and I'll place my pencil on the 10mm mark and connect the line all the way down. And if there's anything to rub out, I'll just turn around, give it a little rub with the rubber. The principle on the other side is very much the same, keeping the stock of the square nicely against the board and the edge of the page. Therefore, slide the ruler up to the pencil mark, and going from the pencil mark you made here up to 10mm away from the edge there, top edge just there. Next, readjust the square with the stock squarely against the edge of the board. Loosen this wheel where my fingers are just here in order to adjust the blade of the square, and then lock it off again once you're done. So we'll do that now. And you can see it just comes up to meet the line there. And making sure that I'm using the right dot, double check. And then over to here. And slide the stock down the bottom of the page. And again, if any of the corners do overlap, just neatly rub them out. And the key here is to be as neat as possible. So, next up, I will want 5 lines of text on my drawing. So I'll place 35mm on my borderline and mark every 5mm like so up to the round number. So 200 to 235 should give me 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Sorry, 7 lines just there. And coming in this way, I'll place a small mark. Now, working on the scale, depending on the size of the page, would normally be 100mm. In this case, because I'm working on A4, we're going to pick 75mm. Okay. And I know, let's try a different method so you guys can see. Going back to the ruler, keeping it nice and parallel to the page here, I will place 0 on my line and I'll mark 5mm, 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 millimeters, 5mm, all the way up to 35mm. And then I will draw the line down from the 75 to connect that. And I'll set a square to the first mark. And if the tail stock does start to slide off the end and becomes unstable like this, turn it around and use it the other way. Make sure you're on your line and bring it neatly through to the border on the other side. And you can see from the initial set of pencil marks that we put in whether or not everything's running nice and squarely through there. Back this way again, and all the way around, and back this way again. And you can see that wherever possible, I'm not squaring from the board like this. So the temptation might be to slide this down this way and square all of these across. But actually, it's much more accurate if, as much as humanly possible, we keep this bottom edge of the page just here as our only reference. So now we have completed text box for all the information that we're likely to want to put on the drawing. There we go. Nicely through there. Next up, we might want to find the centre of the page. So in this case, simply measure the full width along the borderline, and I'd find it to be 297mm, which is going to be 148.5. So if I measure from the edge of the paper, because that's the total width we took, 148.5, and place a pencil mark just there. I can then set my combination square up to that point, place a light line across the middle of the page there. Now I can use my combination square to read 211mm, which will be 105.5mm. So I would measure from my dot down that line from the edge with 100mm on the edge of the page. 105.5, and I'll just double check myself there as well. So I'll put 100mm on the dot, and we'll see where my finger is here, 105.5. Actually reading on the tape, 205.5, because 100mm is on the centre mark. So now that we have that centre mark of the page, I might put a small ring around it and label it CP for centre point. So here is the exception to the rule, where we might wish to use the side of the page to put the square side of the board to put the board against. So if we had an angle set up on, say, a square or an angle tool such as this, we would rest it on top of the square, making sure that it's nice and tight against it, that the square is nice and tight there, and we would set it such that it runs through, for example, our centre point, maybe like so. So with the square nice and tight there, with this nice and tight against the blade of the square, we'll put our guide line at our required angle through here. The line may be required to extend 100mm in total length, so I'll put a mark. I'll put 200mm on the centre line and mark 50mm each side, which is 150mm and 205mm. And I'll square a line up through that neatly just there, and square a line up through this neatly just here. Now that I don't need any more past that line, I'll just reduce down those pencil lines to meet that. Now there are various different types of compasses. This type of compass, for example, is very useful because it locks nicely, which means that you can slide this backwards and forwards to set your line. And the method for this is, say we want to draw a circle with a 50mm diameter or 25mm radius. From this point just here, we will set the combination square up to here, extend a light pencil line more than the radius, and then we will take one of our measuring devices and measure 25mm down the line. So in this case I've got 100mm, 90, 80, 275. If you want to count the other way, 10mm to there, 10mm to there, 5mm to there, as accurately as I can. I would now set the centre point of the compass to that point and adjust by sliding it down, gently test, and then strike my arc, or circle in this case. Now, because this is a radius and that was the centre, we could have measured the 25mm from this point to this point. But generally speaking, you're much better off measuring your radiuses parallel to the bottom here. Next up, we'll follow the same process again. Place your pencil. Once you set your combination square, place a small pencil mark and lightly line through. And in this case, we want a 30mm radius, which will make a 60mm diameter circle. And we'll place a small mark just there. It's worth pointing out that you should ensure that the lead in your compass is sharp as well, or the pencil in your compass is sharp. Now this type of compass I find very useful. It has a wheel just here, and you can see as I turn the wheel, the points come together. As I turn them the other way, they come apart, which makes it very accurate and unlikely to slip when setting up. So in this case, I can just wind the wheel until it comes in line nicely with the pencil mark just there. And then because we have this little dial on the top here, I can just put that between my fingers and neatly spin a line. And yes, I did check to make sure that my pencil line was going exactly through my pencil mark just here. Okay. So at this point, it may be acceptable to connect simply using a ruler between 2 points on the drawing as well. And this might be an excellent way to indicate an expansion of a detail. Something that's maybe slightly too small to see clearly at the scale it's been drawn at. So I'll go ahead and give a quick example of that on a recent drawing that we've done. We drew an external wall on a scale of 1 to 50. It came up at 7mm. So I'm going to go and put a mark 3.5mm from the centre of our circle just here to be halfway through the wall. 1, 2, 3.5, and then I'm going to set 7mm from that mark I've placed. So this mark, this centre mark, 3.5mm that way, from this point, 7mm to there. And in that wall we had a door, which would have had a door lining in it, but at a scale of 1 to 50, that is quite difficult to see. So I'm going to replicate that for you guys now, and then I'm going to show you the expanded detail so you can see how that works. Okay. I'm also going to use a little symbol here, which I find quite useful when I either don't need the rest of the drawing, as in this case, or when the drawing has been shortened slightly. I'll simply cut it off by putting this little symbol in the line here. So this wall goes around a corner. Which means that I'll need this bottom line to be 7mm, the thickness of the wall, longer than the top line. It's also worth pointing out that the ruler has the way up. So if you look at it on edge, you can see just here it slopes down, and just here it slopes down, and on this side it's flat. I want 2mm up here, and from there I want 7 plus 2, so 7 to the thickness of the wall, 8, 9 to the rest of that, and then I can square my line to there, and in this space we can see a representation. The doorway just comes back in there, doesn't it? So the doorway is 900mm wide, which translates at 1 to 50 at around about 18mm. And you can just see the doorway and the rest of the wall starting just here, just a tiny bit still biting in. So this space between here and here would be a door. So now we can expand these through to here and just pick that up a little bit, put details of the door frame and the door into the wall on a slightly bigger scale. So let's make that twice the size, shall we? So now we'll go 14mm either side of the centre line of this, which should give us a nice size. 7mm either side of the line, so it's double the size. So in this case, I'll go to 107mm on the centre line, place a dot on the 100mm there, and we'll come back up this way and go to 14mm this side, and that gives us top and bottom of the wall there. And then 1, 2, 3, 4mm gives us this section here coming round. So this, by the way, is wall, if that's not clear, and so is this section just here. So now I can place a little guideline all the way through there, little guideline back that way, same deal, don't need all of that, so nice square line down there. Neatly rub out any overlap and put in a little truncation symbol. Truncated means shortening. As that comes around the corner there, you can see I brought this mark down from the centre line just there, and we know now that the wall is double the size, 14mm, so the scale, so that's 14mm. So I can use any whole number, guys, just to point this out. So at the moment I'm going 6 to 7, 10mm, 11, 12, 13, 14mm. Exactly on the dot just there. So it's worth noting that we're at 1 to 50 here and the wall is 7mm. We're at 1 to 25mm, 1 to 25 here, and the wall is at 14mm. Okay, so the size here doubles, double that, and obviously the scale number halves. And at this point, what we want to do again is just make use of those guidelines. Just bring a very light pencil line up there, bring this down here, and this time the doorway is going to be 36mm wide on the drawing, so it will not come inside the circle. None of it will come inside the second circle here. But now at this scale, it would be worth drawing on the door frame. So this is a detail enlargement, and that is basically what I'm teaching you to do here. So let's see, if the wall's 350mm thick and the door frame is 150mm, we have 75mm reveal, if you like, before the door frame comes in. Because we designed this to be timber framed with a brick skin on the outside, I would say that 75mm is about right. 65mm brick plus 10mm mortar would sit slightly in front of the door frame. So our brick and mortar will need to be drawn in. So 75 divided by 25, the scale of this drawing is 3mm. So we want to come back 3mm this way, and want that brick to come out maybe 25mm to 30mm past the frame. So we want an extra millimetre on this line just here, like so. And you can see why we needed to scale up a little bit in order for this to work. So I'll take that round to there, extend that up, and bring that up a millimetre to match the end of our line just there. And this is now the brickwork coming in front of the frame. We'll also have a 50mm cavity, which will have to be closed off. So you'll need a 2mm because it's 1 to 25, and the timber in there will be 50mm by 50mm in a 50mm cavity. 2mm that way, and we'll need to measure 2mm that way as well. And we'll bring that little line down there, and if you wish to, you can indicate the inside face just like that, going that way. The inside face of the stud work. We're not going to draw the entire section of the stud work. And we'll put a little X in there just so that you can see that that's a damp proofed wrapped cavity closer. And then we'll put in a few dotted lines just to indicate the back face of the bricks down here, and that's your cavity void, which of course will continue around this corner if you wish to. 1, 2, 3mm. Okay, here we go. So just push that up to there, and that's down there like so. Push that up to there, and you can see that continues round all the way around the outside of the building. 3mm just there as well. There we are. That way as well. So next up, we'll need to draw the door frame. So this is an external door, could be quite a wide door frame, and I would like to see that at 150mm. So that'd be 6mm to here. And I think it's likely to be 75mm, which is 3mm again, thick. Probably 1, 2, 3. Okay, 75mm from there. Our overhang was 50mm, 2mm. So our door on the door frame on the inside will project just a very tiny bit past the reveal of the bricks just there, and it will come back for a 50mm thick door, 2mm this way, and then it will come out a very tiny bit the door sits into. And if you do over project that line slightly, don't stress, you can simply correct neatly with the rubber, and using a ruler just put those lines back in. Okay, just like so. And of course, looking down on section on this will be timber, because it will be the door frame jam. So then there'll also be the top of the door, which will continue off down the doorway this way, and the front face of the door that will continue off this way. So that is door jam. That is the top of the door, just there. This is wall, cavity, and jam just here. There you go. Inside, outside. And that is just a way to scale up a little bit inside the detail bubble for you.